Hi everyone. I just want to bring your attention to a document that I found, which was recorded on from the Catholic Record in London, Canada, on September 1st, 1923, and this is about the Sabbath observance. This document right here is proof that the Catholic Church changed the Sabbath from the seventh day to the first day of the week. And I'm going to read a little bit for you, but before I do, I want to bring your attention to the date. It says now September is the 9th month, so it's 9/1, and then the first one on the year is 9/11, and then the last three digits are 9/23. Now 9/23 has been watched every year now for the past, maybe since 2011, 12. We've been watching that date, which is around the Feast of Trumpets or Elul. But I thought it was very significant that on the 9/23 and the 9/11 is here. I mean, is something terrible going to happen on September 23rd? Are we going to have another 9/11? I don't know, but it jumped out at me, and it was worth saying it, so let it be said. So I'm going to read a little bit of this to you, and I'm going to put it into the description box so that you can read it yourself. It says, a short time ago, this state city of London experienced a tempest in a teapot over Sabbath observance. It was proposed to allow the children to use the municipal swimming pool during the sweltering weather we were then having. Immediately, there was a minstrel chorus of protest. One reverend, Boanerges, valiantly declared that they would not rest until they had routed, quotes, the hosts of hell, unquote. Presumable he saw an apocalyptic vision, the infernal armies lined up behind his worship, the mayor and others in their impious assault on the sanctity of the Sabbath. Imagine the consternation in the ministerial association and the jubilation amongst the hosts of hell when they read in the London Free Press of this dastardly flank attack on their citadel of Sabbatarianism. That Sabbath observance in the strict sense of the law of Israel, whether on the traditional or any seventh day, is no concern of the Christian, was the assertion of Reverend J. Marion Smith of Emmanuel Baptist Church in Toronto in his evening sermon yesterday at the Talbot Street Baptist Church, and this under a two-column heading, Sabbath observance not any part of man's duty as a Christian. True, Mr. Smith was speaking to the, quotes, interrogative subject, unquote. Can a saved man be lost? That is quite a big subject in itself, but we shall take first his pronouncement on the Sabbath, which evidently struck the reporter and the city editor as the more sensational, if not the more important part of the sermon. The report of the Free Press continues. Quoting St. Paul, he declares that making any point of the old Mosaic law a test of righteousness is to accept the full burden of the rules, rituals, customs enjoined by Moses. In Toronto, for instance, he said that there are many who make a great point of Sabbath observance. I do not consider it any part of my duty as a Christian to observe the Sabbath. When Christ came, the old law was fulfilled and done away with. Christ was the only being as a human who could and did observe the whole law. Of course, as a Christian, I observe certain rules of conduct and habit, but that is a matter of personal purity. It will be noted that the last paragraph purports to quote the very words of the preacher. To the Toronto Star, the Reverend Mr. Smith gave an explanatory interview, which, though it may tend to allay Sabbatarian indignation, does not claim that it was misreported. Indeed, he further emphasizes the fact that Jewish Sabbath and Christian Sunday are quite distinct and separate institutions. We quote from the Star. The Jewish Sabbath is not Sunday, the Lord's Day. Christians are all wrong in speaking of the Sabbath as Sunday, said Mr. Smith, and Sabbath is not binding upon the Christian as a means of justification from sin, he went on. I got to roll up here. Okay. In keeping, I'm right here in case you got lost. In keeping of Sunday, the Lord's Day, is quite a different matter and springs not from any obligation to the Jewish law, but is the ready response from the heart of the Christian who observes Sunday as a day set aside for worship and rest. This observance is one of the highest privileges of mankind, and it is only reasonable that 1/7 of man's time should be devoted to special worship and spiritual refreshment. And further to mollify the critics, he added in conclusion, one of the greatest blessings of Canada had been due to the strict observance of the Lord's Day. To throw Sunday wide open would be to paralyze much good that is now accomplished and to throw unlimited temptation before the young life of our boys and girls. The ministers of London who criticized Mr. Smith's sermon left the real crux of the question untouched, and that is not surprising. For on Protestant principles, there is no possible explanation of the substitution of the Christian Sunday for the Jewish Sabbath. For this plain abrogation of the express commandment of God as recorded in the Bible, Protestants reject divine tradition, the unwritten word which Catholics accept as equal authority with the written word, the Bible. The divine authority given by Christ to the church to teach in his name, to bind and loose, Protestants deny for them, and it is their boast. The Bible and the Bible alone has divine authority. Now, in the matter of the Sabbath observance, the Protestant rule of faith is utterly unable to explain the substitution of the Christian Sunday for the Jewish Saturday. It has been changed. The Bible still teaches that the Sabbath or Saturday should be kept holy. There is no authority in the New Testament for the substitution of Sunday for Saturday. Surely it is an important matter. It stands there in the Bible as one of the 10 commandments of God. There is no authority in the Bible for abrogating this commandment or for transferring its observance to another day of the week. For Catholics, it is not the slightest difficulty. All power is given me in heaven and on earth. As Father sent me, so I also send you, said our divine Lord, in giving his tremendous commission to his apostles. He that heareth you, heareth me. We have in the authoritative voice of the church, the voice of Christ himself. The church is above the Bible, and this transference of Sabbath observance from Saturday to Sunday is proof positive of that fact. deny the authority of the church, and you have no adequate or reasonable explanation or justification for the substitution of Sunday for Saturday in the third Protestant fourth commandment of God, as the Reverend Mr. Smith rightly points out. The Jewish Sabbath is not Sunday, the Lord's Day. Christians are all wrong in speaking of the Sabbath as Sunday. The Christians who so speak, the Bible Christians, those who make the Bible the sole rule of faith, and the Bible is silent on Sunday observance. It speaks only of Sabbath observance, the Lord's Day. Dies Dominica is the term used always in the Missal and the Breviary. It occurs in the Bible once. It looks like APOC. I don't know what that is. 110. Apocrypha, maybe? In Acts 20. 7 and 1. Corinthians 2. There is a reference to the first day of the week, but in none of these is there a remotest intimation that henceforth the first day is to take place on the seventh. That is the crux of the whole question. What the authority does the Bible give for change, and the difficulty Mr. Smith and his critics, though pious and effusive and vaguely eloquent about many things, have each and all sedulously evaded. If affects very materially and very intimately the question of the proper observance of the Lord's Day. Okay, I'm going to put this link in the description box for you, and you can download it yourself. And you see here, the above article was published in the Saturday, September 1st, 1923. So it was posted on the Lord's Day itself on a Saturday, September 1, and the one September 11, 923. Oh, this is just too suspicious for me. Okay, it says here, Catholic Record, and here's the publisher. The Catholic Record has been approved and recommended by Archbishops Falconio and Sabaretti, the late apostolic delegates to Canada, archbishops. Let's see. Yeah, even a pope said that the Catholic doctrine is superior to Scripture. Look at that. And this was said by Pope Leo the 13th, dated November 18th, 1893. Catholic doctrine, as authoritatively proposed by the Church, should be held as the supreme law, foreseeing that the same God is the author both of the sacred books and of the doctrine committed to the Church. It is clearly impossible that any teaching can be legitimate means be extracted from the former, which shall in any respect be at variance with the latter. Hence it follows that all interpretation is foolish and false, which either makes the sacred writers disagree one with another or is opposed to the doctrine of the Church. Oh my. It just gets worse and worse. And anyway, I just want to bring this to your attention.